The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in, making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro. I'm Dave.
And I'm Lana.
That's right, you are. And today we're having a fun one because Lana is going to throw some, I don't even know what they're called. What are they called?
I would say current dating terminology.
Yeah, so she's going to throw these words at me, and I'm going to try to guess what the hell they mean because some of the terminology that's used today drives me nuts. And Lana will tell you, I hate them. I think it's silly when I hear stupid things like, oh, he ghosted me. What? I mean, I know what ghosting is, but that's probably the only one I know, right? So Lana's going to throw them at me. I'm going to try to guess what they are, and then we're going to talk a little bit about them. She's going to school me, and possibly some of you as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to say okay boomer because Dave is more of a Gen Xer.
I'm a Gen Xer.
And so am I. But we don't want to sound like boomers.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a young crowd coming up that sort of kind of has terms that we don't, and we're just doing that old man in a bar, in a corner bar thing going, these damn kids today are their terminology. We don't even say terminology.
That's
these
right.
Damn kids and their words, their slang and whatnot.
You got to remember, Gen X's, we lived through the boomer.
Yes,
we were raised by boomers, right? And we also have to deal with the the
millennials.
We also have to deal with
was millennials. See, I'm really confused about this. I have to go look at a chart because I can never remember. It's like World War IIers, then the boomers, then the Gen X generation, and then it's either I think it's millennial and then Gen Y. Or Gen Y and Millennial and Gen Z. I know
we've had to deal with all of them, and we're smack dab in the middle of all the nonsense. And you know what? We're the ones that don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
We kind of don't.
I kind of like the Gen X's.
Right. Well, I do too, but I would assume that we're probably going to be biased to it because we're in it. So it'll be hard to see outside of that, obviously.
True story.
But, there's some people that are younger than us that are hopefully listening. I'd like a younger audience. And so I believe that it wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of review some of these terms because they are relevant as much as we want to say, these damn kids and ignore all the words.
Well, of course, words change. I mean, look, I'll give you an example. When I was a kid growing up, the appropriate word to say was retarded. I had a retarded aunt. And people are like, oh, my God, don't say that. And I'm like, that was the appropriate word. I don't even know what to call her now. I mean, she's passed now, but I loved my aunt very much. And you couldn't call her mentally retarded because that was mean, apparently. But retarded, if you dissect the word, it means it's not set proper. It's off a little bit.
Previous to that, he was feeble-minded, actually.
Correct.
There have been more than one thing, but that was kind of a correct term at one time because we didn't know any better.
Because there are many people today that are feeble-minded that do not have any kind of medical condition that they could call, or that we would have called retarded back then. So when people get mad at me for using that word, I'm like, I had a retarded aunt. So that was the word I heard a lot. It's not like I was just a kid that wasn't associated with with somebody with a mental disability. But by saying she's mentally disabled, what kind?
Right.
You know what I mean? There's different ones. I mean, I have friends today that I would consider mentally disabled for sure, including myself, probably.
I mean, it is good to discuss the fact that for me, I want to understand the education or the arc of where we came from and where we are, and it's not. There are words that we should be able to still discuss as words that we used to use so that we can understand the development of language over years.
Of course.
So I don't really like.
Of course.
if we're not, as long as we're not, I personally, as long as we're not mean spirited about words that we've now learned are not a good thing to use as we progress, right? As we enlighten ourselves and become better people over time. But there's nothing.
Is it? So right. So using the word retarded to me, if somebody says it, I'm not going to be like, that's mean. I would, because that's what I grew up on, right?
But you now know
I was
that
never trying to be mean to my
okay,
aunt.
we don't
I
really
love my aunt
try,
very much.
Right, but we now try not to use that word anymore. However, I can understand it wouldn't be offensive to you because of the background that you came from. There's nothing wrong with that except to say, okay, well, I'm going to be sensitive to what the word has changed into now. So I get that other people are not happy about it. I'm not going to say they're wrong for saying that it's, ableism, which is basically what you would call it, or if you're saying something like that now and using that as a slur, okay, maybe it's not a bad idea to kind of look over the education of it and how it changed. But back in 1970, because it has.
I understand, but why? Just because it has is not a. So that's like me grounding my kid and go, because I said so. Okay. It just doesn't work for me. I need to know. Give me something.
Actually, I don't have it in front of me, but there are reasons why those words are changed. I just don't have a definition in front of me about it, and I could go look it up, and it's probably going to take 15 minutes to do that.
We don't want to do that today, but I will look into it because I want to know why. And I've asked people, why does that bother you? And they don't have an answer. They just say it's just not the appropriate word. And I go, okay, it used to be. What changed is what I want to know. And I'm sure
there are
that
slang,
it did change somewhere.
To me, there are. As we grew up, there were slang terms that we used for a lot of things, and they weren't. There was a point in time where in my opinion, we just didn't know any better, so that's what we did. And yes, again, there aren't definitions in front of me that I've looked up because I don't have them, so I don't want to say things in the wrong way. I'd rather go research it. Sure. But yes, over time, we have either learned that the person or people we were addressing thought that it was. I mean, a slang term is a slang term. And if they were offended by it in some way,
that wasn't a slang term. I mean, I remember the doctor saying, she's retarded, and my grandmother would say my daughter is retarded. Right.
It wasn't, but I believe it. At some point, we came to a better decision about what to call it, and then that term became known as a slang term.
Because who had a problem with it? Because my aunt sure didn't.
Again, years ago, it was okay. So or it was a common term. So.
I just think we become more sensitive, and it's the people, the people that are more sensitive to that, I think, are the people that do not suffer with the problem.
That could be a conversation.
Honestly. I noticed that.
I'll bring up quickly, because we have so much to go through here. I'll bring up quickly, me being that I'm biracial, that I am, and there's so many words that I grew up listening to. There are just so many words I grew up listening to.
Sure.
And a lot of them were, to me, I didn't understand, but maybe some of the words that I was called as a kid were derived from slang. They were derived from insults. That's how it was. Course. But because I didn't know that, I didn't know that they were wrong. It didn't. And things like, half breed.
So they didn't bother you.
When you look at that, that's a half. That's when I looked at it, it was like, okay, well, it kind of makes sense. But when it was basically looked at as a slang for a canine, and you look at it that way, it's kind of like, oh, okay. I never looked at the origin of that term. I was called that term a lot. I was called mulatto
told you, a lot. This should make you feel bad.
If you look at the word mulatto.
Mulatto was a big one.
Yeah, if you look at the background of that word.
Now what do they call them?
Basically, it's biracial, and technically it makes sense, or bicultural, because technically we're not, let's go into technical of race being human. We really can't be right. We're all the same, but cultural or
of course,
your background or your history, you have more than one ethnic background. That's really what it is.
Yep.
So okay, so it's multicultural or multi-ethnicity. That's technically what they call it now.
Sure.
I think at my first, I have to bring this up because I listened to it not long ago. My very, very first episode that I did with you, where we introduced ourselves, I said that I was a loving child. I listened back to that, and I thought people probably thought I was a loving child, meaning that I was a loving personality. That's not what I meant. If you know me, you'd know that's definitely not what I meant. What I meant was there was a ruling in Virginia, which is loving, and you can look it up. And technically, it was about biracial. It was about interracial marriage. And I was in that era. There was an era of children that came from that. And I would say that I was a loving era child just because of the time.
It was not expected. It's kind of like the
it was illegal. It wasn't not expected. It was illegal.
The Romeo and Juliet thing was a loving thing. They were love with each other, but societally they should not have been together.
Right, but the reason it was called loving was because one of those people had the last name Loving. It was an actual court case. So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, was it really?
Yes. I believe
I didn't know that. I thought it was because
the husband's name, his last name was actual Loving. It was, and they used that case much like Roe versus Wade. That's why they're called that. Those people involved those were their last names. Same thing with Loving, the Loving Virginia case. I believe it was. Now that I think about it, there was a movie about it, and I'll send it to David. He can put it on his list of things that he never watches that he's always going to watch.
I'm starting to. I've watched a couple of them. I watched the '99 thing there that you told me to watch.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And we'll talk about that later.
Everybody's probably wondering what I meant.
But I want to look at it. I believe again. I can't remember because I don't have it in front of me. But
I think the millennials should watch it too. What's the name of it? It's
the Woodstock.
Do you remember the name of it? Yeah, it's Woodstock '99 basically, and it's on HBO Max. And if you're a millennial, you should watch it and see what your group of people are like.
Yeah,
it's crazy to me, because I went to '94,
and they say that was one of the guy that he just died in January. Michael, I forget his last name. I don't have it in front of me here. I'm doing this like I don't have it in front of me thing today because what I have in front of me is not what we're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about, right?
But he was walking around for the rest of his life talking about there's gonna be another one, and it never. I think the last when he went to do something happen, of course with permits or whatever. If you look at the Woodstocks, you can see even the '69 Woodstock. I don't really want to see. There was a video that made Woodstock look like this amazing magical thing. I don't care about that. What I like is that background stuff that we couldn't put it together. It almost didn't happen. The very first person that performed at Woodstock in '69 did because nobody was there yet. Like they were trying to fly in artists, and I forget the first guy that was on, but he's on for 4 hours because he was stretching. It had nothing to do with it's beautiful and you this and that. They spun it a certain way, but technically, Woodstock was kind of a mess, like from beginning to end. The very first one.
Of course it was. You put on anything that big,
and that's fine. But I don't. What I don't like is I like that gritty background information.
Yeah, me too. Just ask anybody that had. I mean, I can tell you about my 18th birthday party, and people will tell you great stories about it. But the fact of the matter is, there was 3 inches of beer covering my cellar floor. There were people pissing in the closets because the
that's what I love to hear.
It was
and I don't mean that I'm happy that it was happened.
Insane.
I just want to know. I don't like
but
I don't like that romanticized version of stuff that people put out.
You put a million people in one spot, and you've got and they're in the middle of nowhere with no the running water had to be piped in and all that stuff. It's going to be a mess. But '99 was amazing to watch because you learned a lot about that.
I'm so glad you saw it because I wanted you to understand because of the first two. Anyway, how they tried to avoid the first two happening, and then they made it much worse than it had to be. But anyway, we have so many different terms here that we're going to talk about. And as you're online dating and as you're meeting people, there are all these for us old Gen Xers, there are these new terms that are now cropped up. And at first we want to go, oh, for God's sake, I know what that means. It means this. Why don't they just call it that? Right. Instead, I decided let's try to education. Educate ourselves.
We're going to quiz me and educate me as well. And like I said, she's going to say the word and we'll see what we do. Let's just do it.
So the very first word I'm going to bring up is ghosted, which you know. And the only reason I want to bring it up, I mean, I want to bring it up because it's part of the podcast and it's part of these new terms. It's probably one of the older terms of these new terms at this point. And a lot of people are starting to use that. We had this conversation about terms that people are using to just blanket everything. And I believe that ghosting is starting to become a term that people are using for everything under the sun and not what it's supposed to be for.
Right. So my opinion on ghosting, and this is what I think it is. I think it's when you're talking with everybody, somebody, and you think everything's going well, and all of a sudden they just don't respond to you anymore. They're gone.
Right. And ghosting is there's no forewarning to ghosting. It's not like somebody tells you 5 times they're going to go away and then they do. That's not ghosting.
Right.
But people are using it that way.
That's you.
You know.
Yeah, I know. Like Yeah, he told me he wasn't into me, and then he just ghosted me. No,
Right.
That's not ghosting.
Exactly.
He told you I'm not into you.
If it's
you didn't
like
get ghosted,
if it's like you're obviously if you're in a serious relationship, it's a little bit harder to go somebody who has your home address and maybe a key to your apartment, things like that. But if you start dating somebody or start talking to somebody very early on and everything looks like peachy keen and there's absolutely no sign that anything's wrong, and then like the person just like it's like they're dead and you never find anything out again, that's ghosting. And then you can call it that.
I mean, I talked to this woman. I've talked to this woman for literally 5 years on the phone. We talked every day. I've never met her in person, but I enjoy speaking with her. And everybody's like, I wouldn't even talk to her. I'm like, I don't care what she looks like. I don't care anything. They're like, oh, she's probably a catfish. And I go, well, so what? I enjoy speaking to this woman on the phone, and we spoke every day for like 5 years. And she told me stories that. And I don't want to get into it. Well, I'm going to a little bit, and I won't mention a name, but she had cancer, and she didn't have long to live, and that was part of her reasons why she didn't want to meet, because she said she thought that we would like each other, and I did. I loved her. I mean, as a human being, I thought she was wonderful, but I didn't know if I was going to be in love with her. I need to see somebody in the face and feel their energy, and I can't do that over the phone. But so anyway. To make a long story short, just one day she's gone. Either she ghosted me or she actually died. Now I would assume that her phone would be off, and I have called it a few times, and I do get her voicemail, so I'm assuming she's alive and just ghosted me. So weird. Yep. Yeah. Do I need to know why? No. Nope. It's her choice, right? And it sucks.
And you somewhat went into it with some expectation that it's possible that it could happen. So you kind of not completely shocked by it, because she kept saying to you, "Well," so it was a possibility that could have happened, right?
That was a possibility she could die,
or
right? That was the
just
possibility.
Stop talking to you. That had to be something you thought might have. And obviously, there's no reason why, but
I mean. Yeah, no, 5 years every day conversations. Like she called me multiple times a day, and we had a good relationship over the phone. She was like a pen pal.
So you kind of grieved it. That was a grief situation a little bit for you.
It was.
That was like
absolutely.
a death to you in a way.
I was like,
right?
like I'm hoping she's okay.
Right.
But that's all.
Okay.
But that would be ghosting, right? And if she in fact didn't die,
somebody just falls off the face of the earth, doesn't respond to you, you can't find them, you don't know where they're at. That's it. They just in the middle of a conversation stop talking to you and never.
That's
come back.
Ghosting, right? For no apparent reason.
Exactly. Like you just don't see it coming. So that's that one. The next term that I'm going to bring up is breadcrumbing, and I'm going to ask you what you think it is.
Oh God! All right, so. Let's see. I know what breadcrumbs are. We all do from Hansel and Gretel, right?
Yes.
So I'm assuming that it's leading somebody on or leading them to where you need them to be, a form of manipulation.
Yeah, it is that. What it really is somebody who is sending you, whether it's text or emails or whatever it is that you're doing, phone calls, just enough for you to be interested, but not enough to go anywhere. So it's just enough to keep you on ice. So
back burner is no longer a word.
Well, right. But I don't know. Like, I feel like
part-time lover.
I feel like back burner in a way isn't really associated with a relationship. A back burner, to me, is somebody that you've actually dated or something. You don't really want to get involved, but you don't want them to go away. But you keep them on the back burner on low, so that way, that's what we used to call it. So I guess that's anyway true. Yeah. Like I always looked at back burner like there's more to the relationship than breadcrumbing, which is almost like you've never met the person. They're just sort of keeping you at arm's length and not moving anything along until where you even meet them.
So breadcrumbing wouldn't be if you were in a relationship, you guys broke up, but you keep the person on the hook.
No, that's a whole different term.
Just in case.
Believe it or not.
For Christ's sake.
I know. I know. So that's what that is. I mean,
so
the official, it's the act of sending out flirtatious but non-committal social signals in order to lure a romantic partner without expending any effort. It is leading somebody on, of course.
Yes.
Which is what you're saying.
So, all right. Well, so we called it leading somebody on and making them believe it was going somewhere when it wasn't.
And I don't know. Maybe leading somebody on is just old-fashioned and nobody wants to say that.
Or we can straight up call it a lie like it is and not being honest.
Oh, here we go. See, we're going to get Dave. We're going to get Dave, the crotchety old man, to get some terms. Get it. The next one is love bombing.
Okay. So I've heard it before,
Okay.
and I'm not sure I ever understood it because I've heard people use it in multiple different ways, and I'm
it
like,
is. It's
explain,
becoming ubiquitous.
I'm sure it is. Like all of these do. There's no real like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, this
But-
is a psychological
so
term to some degree, actually.
So love bombing, what I understand it to be, is when somebody like floods you with love, like all these things that they're coming across like they really love you when they actually don't.
And yes, I would say that that's an overall correct assessment. It's extreme explosive attention and affection, and it's just stuff like, but it's, in my opinion, love bombing, and I could be wrong, it usually comes across like so early on that it's like almost, it can't be, it's not, it has to be fabricated almost. Like, Dave, you and I start talking, and we've been talking like for 3 days, and I start going, you know what, Dave, I think you're the guy that I think I should marry you, and I think the two of us would be great together. And I start talking about, I don't know if I can live without you, and I just start saying stuff, and you're just like, what? I don't even know.
I've been love bombed before. Okay, so
yeah,
and I call that somebody that's got attachment issues, like they need to attach themselves to the first thing immediately.
I would say yes, except love bombing is actually a nefarious way to do it. Like if you're the type of person who is, you and I probably can't even fathom this, but there are people out there that really, they crave like attention and affection, and they seek almost like approval, and they're lonely, and these are the type of people that fall for love bombing, and the person who gives it to them is really trying to pull them in. They're not actually needy, but they're hoping that you are.
Oh, got it.
And so it's almost like in reverse.
It's a form of manipulation.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like, I really think that.
I'm assuming the person that's doing the love bombing is also a little bit insecure in their life, and they're looking for that now thing.
They are maybe, but mostly, they're trying to. Usually, love bombing is followed by some kind of form of manipulation of like, somebody's credit card gets taken, or something happens or there's just somebody just gets sex out of you, and that's all they want.
Like Marilyn Manson's situation, he was love bombing.
Yes.
What's her face?
Well, that's he was love bombing, and you can even throw in grooming.
Yes,
because somebody is young enough to. I mean, if you have the type of power, let's say that I'm Sophia Loren, which I mean, would be nice, right? Of course, if I was a little younger as Sophia Loren, but let's say that I have this type of effect on men, and then I just go after men that are just powerless to me, and then and I am Sophia Loren, and I go after guys that are not celebrities, and I start telling them, "No, you're the most handsome guy I've ever seen in my life, and I know this is meant to me," and all this other stuff where somebody would just be starstruck by me and couldn't believe I was saying the things I was saying that be love bombing. And if I was doing it on purpose to lure them in.
Well, like Marilyn Manson was.
Right.
What was the name of that one? Do you remember?
The documentary?
Yes.
Phoenix Rising.
Phoenix Rising, and that was on HBO Max,
That's
I believe?
HBO Max also, and that would be Rachel Evan Wood's documentary.
Oh, my God. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that. So far, both of these that I'm talking to you about, Lana recommends them to me. She's like a fanatic about these things.
I am.
But it's really good because you see a side of Marilyn Manson and the stuff that, that video that he made with her where he actually had sex with her. He penetrated her in front of people in that video. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yeah, it
and
is.
she was high and drunk, and because he manipulated her with love bombing.
Yep.
There was a lot of that, and grooming.
Yep.
For sure. Okay.
So that's love bombing. It's like I meet a guy that like is really into me, and I'm kind of whatever about him, but I want him to do what I want him to do. So I'm just gonna throw a bunch of false stuff at him to get him hooked.
Right.
So that's what that is. It says that although it can be a positive aspect at the beginning of a relationship, it can lead to gaslighting and abuse. So I believe if somebody comes on too fast, too strong, too soon, it's not a red flag, but it's something to be aware of. Right.
Now you mentioned another word there, so I'm assuming that's the next one.
It isn't because gaslighting is more of a psychological term. It doesn't really apply to people you're meeting on websites, so, at least not right away.
But, so I was having a conversation with somebody, and she said I was gaslighting her. And I said, and I straight up said, oh, God, you're one of those. Because the only thing I was talking about was what an average was.
Well, yeah,
Now,
you were giving her information and she didn't like it. It wasn't
right, and she told me I was gaslighting her. So I was like,
had
okay,
nothing
I
to
guess
do
I
with
don't
you.
even know what this word means then, because I thought I did, but apparently I don't. Can you tell us what it is?
I can tell you
Quickly.
what it means. Gaslighting really means that what you're doing is taking somebody's experience or what they're experiencing and telling them that it's not happening. And there are manipulative ways. I'm only saying this because I was born and raised by somebody who did this to me.
Yeah.
I learned very young with my mom to never really get into conversations with her without a third person in the room for this reason.
Right.
Because she would tell me straight up that what I was talking about never happened. I was imagining it. I was crazy. I was out of my mind. Something was going on with me. I needed for something to happen in order to, whatever it was, it would never, she would be with me. Something would happen. And I would come back with something a week later and say to her, well, last week this happened. And she'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. She would do that to me.
So gaslighting is essentially, if I'm experiencing something, somebody tells me I don't know what I'm talking about, to make me believe I'm nuts. Really,
right? That's basically
gaslighting.
It.
Right.
You want somebody off their rocker. You want them to think that they're imagining things, and you're really trying to mentally confuse them.
You know what's funny is I used to do that to one of my exes on purpose just to get under her skin, like for fun, not mean. But like I told her that she's like, oh, there's a different time zone in Florida, and I knew there was, in one part of Florida it's in a different time zone, the very top of Florida, and so I go, no, it's not. And she's like, yes, it is. And she was getting so mad. So I go, I'm calling. So I call the operator and I go, is there a different time zone in Florida? And I said, oh, okay, it's all Eastern. And the lady's going to me on the phone. No, there's another one. And I go, okay, thank you very much. I thought so. There was all Eastern time. And I hung up the phone and she lost her mind. And I go, I'm only messing with you. She's like, did you even call anybody? I go, yeah, of course I did. But the lady thought I was nuts on the phone. But, that would be a gaslighting, right? Somebody that knows something.
It would be. I mean, if you were trying to really, I would say not in a funny way. Obviously, I don't think.
Right,
I don't really think you were in that sense. You would have to be.
No, messing with somebody's like I think that's the funnest form of screwing with somebody is making them for a minute think, what? Because people have done it to me, and I kind of like the way that feels. Yeah. So
okay,
not in a mean way. Right? Like if you're trying to manipulate somebody and you're using gaslighting, that's terrible because
if you do that,
you could literally.
That's some, I watch a lot of cult documentaries, and gaslighting is a very, very, very big part of what's called the bite model, which can be brought up at another time. But that's part of it is where they just routinely break down people's thought process to the point where they start second guessing themselves without even anybody helping them. It's just constant. So, anyway, that's part of it. Anyway, the next term I'll bring up is negging, and you probably have heard of negging.
I have not.
You have not? What? Negging's not very new, actually.
Okay, so, whatever. I skipped that crap. So, anyway, all right, negging. Can we use it in a sentence?
Using it in a sentence. I would say that girl, that guy probably wouldn't have gotten that girl's attention if he wasn't using the negging process. Yeah.
God. He wouldn't get her attention if he wasn't using the negging process. So, oh God, I haven't a clue. Not a clue.
So let's take
school me.
Break down all right. So we'll break down negging and we'll use the word negative because negative is part of the word negging.
I figured. Yeah.
And negging is basically a backhanded compliment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think I might have it. So after I was thinking it for a little bit and what you just said, is it bringing down the other person?
It is.
To make
it's a mixed compliment where you say something to somebody like, man, you're a really beautiful girl. It's too bad that you need to lose 30 pounds. That's negging.
So it is a way of demeaning somebody and making them feel less about themselves so they feel like, okay, so there are people that go, so I have a friend that's going through negging this girl is negging him for sure. And the way she's doing it is saying all these guys want her and all this, but all she wants is him. Right. But she's always talking about other guys. That's a form of negging, I would think, to make him feel you're lucky.
In a way.
So
it would be straight out. Yeah, I guess so. It would be straight out. I mean, it has to almost have an insult within it. So it's like that.
Gotcha.
Hey, listen, I can do better than you, so you should probably get yourself together.
Well,
so that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, negging would be an example would be backhanded compliments, comparing you to other people.
Right.
Insulting you under the guise of constructive criticism.
Right.
Always wanting a one-up person is a negger as well. Like, oh yeah, well, what do you how do you think I feel? You think you got it bad?
Oh my God, that's a majority, right?
Yeah.
Anytime, and I'm finding this a lot. I see people post stuff, and everybody's like, "Oh, I hear. I'm going through that now too." I'm like, "Oh my God, does anybody just say, yeah, that sucks?"
Right.
And
right. And
nope.
That's another thing that we'll talk about because there's like that's a weird social thing that people do. Not necessarily right now, but another time maybe.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
In that thing of like, we live in a society that people do these things because it's something they were programmed to do, and I don't think a lot of them even realize they're doing it.
Right.
That's one of those things where somebody, and I've even done it in a way where I stop and I'll stop and catch myself because I think it's a programming thing that we all do.
Right, and I get that. I mean, if somebody's that's different in a conversation, but like posts, see.
Yeah.
And somebody will post and be like, oh, I hate when guys blah blah blah, and they're like, I hear, I'm going through the same thing, and blah, and everybody throws in their problems, right?
That's commiserating.
Nobody ever can just
That's
say
commiseration. People love commiseration.
It is. It drives me nuts. Yeah. It's like, look, yeah, I've had problems in my past. Am I comparing them to yours? Nope, because you know what? I've had some problems in my past that may make somebody's life look like a creamsicle ride. Looks like a game of Chutes and Ladders.
Right.
But to them, their little problems may feel just as big as mine were. Right. So I don't go, oh, well, my problems were worse than yours. I don't know that.
I know.
I can handle a lot more than maybe somebody else can. So I never go, oh, that's nothing. How about this? You know what I mean? I hate it.
I know. I don't really do it. I don't really do that specifically. Yeah. But if somebody is going through a process, I'll kind of say, well, here's what I did. I've gone through that and it sucks. And here's what here's what I would do.
Yeah, here's what I did.
Not here what I would do. Here's what I would do. But here's how I handled it. And,
how I get through it.
But I also, I don't expect anybody to do things the way I do, but it's like an offering.
Right.
But I do believe a lot of people feel uncomfortable by what they see or hear. And then they feel like they have to throw something at you in order to feel like they participated. One of my favorites is I have a lot of animal rescue people in my feed, and they'll put up a dog, let's say that's in Kansas somewhere. And so this dog needs to be rescued, this, and this, and this. And there's people in like Arizona that are like, oh, I wish I was in Kansas because if I was, I would do this. And it's kind of like, that's just such a useless waste of space. Or
you've heard me talk about that in the past. I actually think I did a live on that. It's like, hey, I'm broke down on the side of the road. Anybody got jumper cables? And they're like, oh, if I was nearby. I'm like, what? You're not. Right. So are you just telling me, hey, look at me, I'm a great person.
Closer, or I wish I had cables. But it's like, okay, people feel like they have. It's a
what?
It is there's a whole. I have to look it up. There is a thing about people feeling like they need to be a part of something. I forget how it's described, but there is a term for that, or like a syndrome for that, where people just feel like they have to throw something in. And you'll notice that sometimes somebody will say straight out, listen, I'm not looking for an answer unless you can do something here. And people don't care. And they'll still do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like,
I don't think people, honestly, I believe it's a knee jerk, and I don't believe people are thinking when they do it. It's like they're not using their heads at all.
But are they trying to say, look at me, I'm special, and I'm such a great person, I would do it if I was there? Because you can't do it.
I don't think that people are using their heads they're using that much thought towards it at all, honestly.
Right.
I don't know what, but I'll see that where it's like, well, I can't really participate. I can't adopt this dog. I'm nowhere near this dog. I have 3 other dogs of my own. Like, there's absolutely nothing about my situation.
But I want the world to know that I'm such a great person that I would do it if I was there. I would love to find somebody and go, oh, you know what? We have one right next door to you. How about that one?
Right. I know.
You know what I mean? So I would
they don't really want it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of funny because I posted something a long time ago on my Facebook. I posted, all these people that say I would die for my kids. Would you really, or do you know that you're not going to ever have to die for your kids? So you say that. Now I get the phrasing behind it, but if you can't do something as little as like not feeding them garbage food that's poison, then how can you say you would die for them? You can't even not eat junk food for them.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Or be healthy for them, or whatever the case is.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I get it. I would jump in front of the bullet for my kids. Hopefully I never have to, but I'd like to think I would. But I don't. I also want to educate them to know, my kids are not little anymore, but, you know, too late. I wish I had known this when they were growing up. But if I did know what I know now about the food and the chemicals, I would not have fed that to my kids, period. I know it would suck, but I don't eat it now. You know,
there are some people who you will tell them, and because it's so convenient for them to do what they're doing, they will argue with you, and it's called confirmation bias. It's called cognitive dissonance, where it's like, listen, this is what I do. I buy this stuff. I put it in front of my kids. They eat it. Don't tell me it's not healthy, because then now I have to go and revamp what I'm doing and change what I'd rather call you a jerk for telling me that than actually go do something.
That's right.
But you know, that's to be honest with you, somewhat consumerism has raised us to be that way, but that's in a whole other podcast.
I understand, you know, and there's just educate yourself.
I know people should independently think about stuff like this, but we also can't completely let the system off the hook for the way that we were raised, especially our generation.
I understand that. No,
but
of course. They've been pumping us full of chemicals and letting us do it. So, okay, what's the next word?
Right. All right, so the next word you may know or may not know because of your foray into different types of environments, but it is the word unicorn. I'm going to use a slash, and I'm going to also say unicorn hunter, because that's the other side of unicorn. Okay.
So a unicorn is probably somebody that fakes everything to be the perfect, and I think I've had some unicorns in what they do, and that goes back to be honest with yourself and others, right? So I think that if I sit down and I read right now my list, which we're going to do, right? We're going to do the list of qualifications that are required for me to consider somebody as a significant other. If I read somebody that list, they will agree with every single thing on the list, even if they don't truly. So I'm thinking a unicorn is somebody who will manipulate themselves to fit your needs to get that done. And a unicorn hunter is somebody that, am I wrong?
You're wrong. Oh, shit. I will say that there are people that will call somebody that is their complete list of characteristics a unicorn because they can't find that person. Then that's in conversation.
All right.
But in the dating world, a unicorn is this. Are you ready, Dave?
You'll
be researching this later. A unicorn or third party can be a person of any gender or sexual orientation who joins a couple regardless of the people's genders and sexual orientations. So what it is a person who will come in as a guest star in a couple, a threesome environment. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of dating sites there are people that are looking for unicorns despite trying to say that they're there to date. When you're going through dating sites and you're trying to filter through all of the crazy nonsense that you deal with, there are people there that are looking, and this is somewhat
just to have a threesome. You mean
just have a threesome, or to add there are profiles that it's like, hey, me and my girlfriend, blah blah blah, and we're just looking for such and such, and there's a list of it's something that you come across. But unicorn is a term that's used a lot in the sense that they're looking for somebody that's really going to just be who they want them to be for the period of time they want them to be, and then go away.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's a third partner for anything from casual sex to long-term commitment and all possibilities in between, but it's somebody that fits their needs for a third party. Now, a unicorn hunter...
That's my neighbors. That's my neighbors here at the campground. Not my direct neighbors, so they're here at the campground, and they're from Missouri, and the guy is married, and they have a young woman that is there. She's their unicorn, apparently. They all sleep in the same bed. He sleeps in the middle, and that's their thing.
Okay.
So she would be considered a unicorn, I guess?
She would be considered a unicorn. And basically, it would be somebody that almost comes in and doesn't have any of their own requirements for the relationship. So it's somebody that comes in as a third party and is just kind of going along with what the other two want and don't really put up a lot of fight over it. I don't know if that's the case with this particular company you're talking about. But
I don't either, because
I
don't know
that's kind of the way it's been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a unicorn hunter.
To me, a unicorn would be
those would be the people that are looking. You know, a unicorn hunter would be the people looking, the person looking, or
they're
the people
looking for kind of an inanimate object. They're looking for somebody like a sex toy or
kind of, but a human being that does that. You know,
because to me that's what and I've partaken in I guess unicorn hunting. I actually never did it. The woman I was with used to. But yeah, to me, they were like if we were going to do that, they were a sex toy, an inanimate object that was a temporary solution for what we wanted to fulfill at the moment. Okay,
and there are again, it doesn't. I guess as long as the people that are signing up for these things,
I'm on a Facebook group that my daughter had me sign up for, and it's something about being a unicorn.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's.
No, I don't think. No,
I don't think that's.
It's just people that are like, I want to be a unicorn. Yeah, no.
But I'm just bringing it up. It doesn't even have to be a huge thing. It's just something that you will run across as you're in dating sites and the dating environment. You'll just hear that word, so that's why I brought it up. And that's it. Plus the. What is the word pineapple? Say pineapple. Say pineapple. That's the
oh god,
the word that gets you out of the whatever the situation is you're in.
So you're referring to that guy on YouTube, right? My safe word is pineapple juice. Did you see that?
No, I did not. But that's probably why it's probably related to that.
that's why it's prevalent, because so it's funny for all you people out there. I'm actually really good friends with the grandmother of his son. His daughter.
That's very complicated.
The guy that's in that, not the guy that was saying it, but the guy that has all the videos that he goes and arrests people on warrants.
Okay.
His daughter is my close friend's granddaughter. His daughter. He has a child with her daughter.
Okay.
So yeah, interesting. So
and you can be put in situations where it's a little more BDSM. And end up somewhere where you just don't. Okay, I think I'm in handcuffs and my legs are behind my head or whatever's going on. And I'm in pain, and so I need to tell them to stop. And I need a safe word and
pineapple juice.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
mine's chicken. Mine's chicken.
Okay. All right.
Chicken.
I don't have one because I don't. I might need somebody to throw one at me, but that's another story.
Yeah. Right.
The word orbiting.
Oh God. All right. I know what orbiting is, so I'm gonna assume that it means like hovering around somebody trying to get their attention.
Kind of. What it's like ghosting, however, it's direct contact is broken off. Like you're talking to somebody for a while, and everything's going great, and then they sort of ghost you, but they don't talk to you anymore in text or any direct phone calls or anything like that, but they still sort of social media deal with you.
Huh.
So they're on the fringes. So it's like breaking off direct contact with somebody, but you engage with their content on social media. You do likes, you put comments, and it's all at a removed place, but you don't talk to them anymore directly. Suddenly,
I would be like, who the fuck is this? You can't be you. I mean, I would be so annoyed that I would be like, just get off. What? I don't get it. How can somebody even possibly do that? I don't talk to you anymore, but let me like your picture and let me comment on your shit. It just doesn't make sense. That's just such a stupid thing. No, I don't think
it's like the way that it's explained, it doesn't sound like you have like bad blood or like you had hard feelings with the person. It's sort of like,
but if you ghost somebody, that's a crappy thing to do.
Right. They're saying that it's like
you're not man or woman enough to say.
But you kind of like, you just sort of don't talk to them directly anymore. But you're not. It doesn't sound like by the description that you're like putting your foot down and deciding not to talk to them on purpose because you're upset.
Oh, gotcha.
Just sort of like drift apart and don't speak anymore.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's okay. So I guess I orbit some people then.
Right. So it's like, okay, we used to talk. It's usually somebody you're involved with or you were looking at in that way. And it's sort of like wanes out. Or phases out, but you're still seeing them. You're still connected to them on social media. You're still maybe liking some pictures and whatever. Now, I've done it. Have people who have done it to me.
I've done it too. Yeah. So I get. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Okay. So kind of growing apart is one thing. Right. I wouldn't assume that somebody just ghosted you. You're having conversation, all of a sudden they just disappear, and next thing you know, they're showing up and commenting on your stuff. That would be a little weird.
Right, and it doesn't sound to me like, and like it's orbiting is like I'm learning some of these terms as I went along, and orbiting I was like, what, there's a couple of new terms in here, and that's one of them. So we're both learning on that one because I guess it isn't a sudden. It's sort of just like you drift.
Yeah, which is drifting is okay. Drifting, fading away is fading away. Right. I get that. That happens.
How about the word situationship?
Situationship sounds to me like you want a relationship for a certain situation, and that's it. You don't. It's based upon a situation as opposed to based on what you truly want. That's my guess.
Kind of.
I sound so smart when I say that stuff, and then you go, kind
I know, you do, don't you? Listen
I
to
do.
you
I want.
You're like, oh, I know this is. Oh, it isn't?
I know. It's like,
but that's okay. That's why
my
this
best
is fun.
guess. Yes,
That's
it
why
is.
this is fun.
It's fun. I love being tested. Test away.
It's a romantic or sexual relationship that's not considered to be formal or established, meaning it's usually, somebody that you're sweet on or you want to get involved with, and they're sort of giving you a half-ass attempt. And so you're saying, oh, well, we're in a situationship. That means like we're not where I want us to be, but
this is a dumb one.
Right. It would be, well, I'm just saying it would be better if if the two of us were involved or whatever, but it's sort of like he calls me every third Thursday or whatever it is, or we just go out to have pizza and then have sex once a week or whatever it is.
Yeah. That would be a friend with benefits or a booty call. One of the two. But it's something where it's consistent enough to be happening, but not consistent enough. And usually it means the other person won't label it as anything specific. And they kind of leave you hanging. They want you around. They don't really want to they don't want to put a name on it. So that's it's not formal or established. That's I don't
all.
Like it.
Well,
I don't like that one.
You don't have to like it.
Nope.
It's out there.
Yuck.
What would you say for the word benching?
Oh, well, I don't know. I played football a lot growing up as a kid, and I got benched for doing bad things. So I was. I would say it's a form of punishment, like you're being benched because somebody else is better, that is capable of doing more of what they want than you.
It is. These words are crazy. It's the act of putting someone on the bench because they've done something you don't like or that has upset you. Do you get a cake for that? Do you get a attaboy for that? Keeping them on timeout until further notice. But that's also with dating. Hold on. I might have just... There we go. When somebody's not exactly
interested... We used to call it
interested,
being put in the doghouse.
Right. Someone's not exactly interested in dating you, but at the same time, the person doesn't want you to do anything else. That's what the dating description of that is.
Oh, that's...
So he or she tries to keep all the options open and would come back to you when they feel like it, but they don't necessarily want to...
See, that is the back burner one that we used to call it you're on the back burner, or you're on the string or whatever. They keep you at a distance until they need you, but they got that string attached to you. So now I'm lonely. Let me yank that string and bring you in. And then when I'm happy and things are going good for me, I don't need you anymore. You sit on the back burner and I'll just keep you warm. And
it says the signs that they're benching you, their behavior is too confusing. You're never sure where you stand. They disappear every once in a while and act like nothing happened when they come back.
Right.
They send you semi-frequent text to keep you interested and involved. And you get too many last-minute date cancellations.
Right. That's a back burner thing. That's exactly
inconsistency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That's it.
And there are people who will take that too, which is crazy to me. I think that comes with probably a little bit of love bombing too, to be able to keep them there. They make you feel like you're worth something, and listen, if you're a man or a woman that is willing to sit on that back burner, you need to look at your childhood and figure out why it is that you have insecurities and let somebody treat you like that, period. Mm-hmm. And again, the reason we're doing these episodes in the order that we're doing them is because you look at things, it all stems from your childhood. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at be honest with yourself and others, right? And then we're also at this point talking about things that your insecurities and your jealousies and stuff that prevent you from standing up for yourself because you're afraid to lose any little bit you have.
Right.
That's a problem. To me, if somebody's not treating me the way I want to be treated, I will remain friends with them, but that's it. I'm not going to sit around waiting for somebody. If I mean, you all know I was totally in a relationship for a year. I was totally in love with the girl, but there was things missing. And again, being honest with myself and others, I said, this is not going to work because I'm going to end up hating you. and I don't want to do that. So let's part ways. And we're great friends. And that's really weird. But you have to have that. You have to be secure enough. Did I want to not have a girlfriend? No, I didn't want that. Of course I didn't. But
did you want her to date other people? No, you really didn't, right? You did. You were okay with it, but you weren't going to be happy about it. But
not at
it
the
is
beginning.
what it is.
Now right. And now we're friends and we talk about the people that she dates. I'm good with that, so we're past that, and it didn't take long to get there because I'm a realist, right? I don't expect her to be single. She's a beautiful girl. She's going to get, things, and she's got some growing to do on her own as well. And we all do, right? So, but she's dated a few times since we split up, and I'm totally okay with that. Nothing turned into anything serious.
At the end of the day, your interest in them being happy should really be over and above your interest in your own.
Of course.
Whatever.
Of course.
But
I've
that's
always
not a
been
lot of,
like
there's
that.
really not a lot of people out there.
I know. I hear
off.
it during conversation, like I've heard people tell me when I was talking to my certain friends about what was going on with me and Brittany, they immediately said, oh, she doesn't know what she's missing and blah, 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 dump her and blah. And to me, people always try to benefit themselves somehow in the conversations that they have.
Right.
To me, if I give you advice, it's for you and you only. I don't get any benefit from it at all. In fact, I know that, and it drives me crazy
me too.
because
platitudes and I'm going to go get somebody for you. How dare somebody treat you that way? None of that to me is not productive. None of that stuff.
No, it's not. Like she was asking questions when we were first friends. She had a boyfriend and she was talking about it. And there was a couple times I said, look, I can't answer that question because I would probably be biased. I said, but if I was answering it from a non-biased thing, this is what I see. This is what you told me. And this is why I see what I see. And, there's no benefit to me to tell you this.
Right.
But I'm going to be honest because I care about you. And that's what everybody should do. There should not be any, and I get being biased is difficult. Not being biased is difficult when you have feelings for somebody. But if you're going to be biased, straight up say it. I can't answer that. I can't have this conversation with you because I'm biased.
See, but to do that would be, you would have to maybe swallow your pride, or you would maybe have to admit that you're not perfect
That's like
for
me,
a second.
That's like me going to court. If my daughter did something wrong and I go to court and I'm sitting in court, you're going to ask me for my opinion on my daughter? I can promise you it's biased.
Right.
Right? There's no question. So that's why they don't.
Right.
You don't see the parents going and saying, oh, they were a good person, they this, they that. You don't, because they have a biased opinion, and, your kids can do no wrong, and they're going to always recognize that. That's why, parents don't testify in their kids' behalf, because duh.
Right.
So, all
right,
what do
we
get
got a
next?
new word.
Ooh.
Stashing.
Oh, for crying out loud. Stashing. Go. Okay. I have to be right on this. This is stashing.
Okay.
Okay. Because you can stash your weed. You can put your weed in it. That movie? Adam Sandler? You can put your weed in it. Well, I don't know.
I'm weird with him. I'm on and off with Adam Sandler.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think probably doesn't want to. I don't think that's one of them. Is that Waterboy?
It was one of my... It's not. It's a movie that he was not in. He had a cameo thing, and that's all his lines were.
Oh,
ever.
okay.
They were like, go to buy a bongos, and they're like, oh, these bongos for sale? And he's like, yeah. And he flips it upside down. You can put your weed in it. I forget what movie it was, so it's not helpful to anybody. So anyway, stashing, I would think, is where you're kind of ashamed of somebody, and you kind of keep them away from everybody else. You keep them out of your actual life. You stash them, but you have this private relationship type of thing with them, but nobody else can know they're stashed away. That's my very
That's pretty good,
guess.
Dave.
Is it good?
Very, 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 very close. I think social media is the context here. But yes, it happens when one person in a relationship makes a conscious decision of keeping their partner from their inner circle. That can range from a hesitancy to introduce you to any of their friends and family to avoiding making the relationship known on social media. That's the little part that was missing, but the rest of it is pretty much
okay.
Money.
So, I mean, that makes sense. And there are people that do that, right? I've been stashed before.
Right.
Because I'm older.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, stashing, if you're doing that to somebody, it sucks. It doesn't feel good. And they're not blind to it. They see it. Right. And trust me, I had the conversation many times, right? Like, I get it at the beginning of a relationship. I expect a little bit of stashing to be done because you want to be sure before you bring them around your family and your friends and, bring them into your inner circle. But after a period of time, if you're still being stashed, it's going to make that person, you're stashing somebody, they're going to know and they're going to hate it. And what a word. I've been stashed. I've been freaking stashed before.
So you
it
like
doesn't
it.
feel
It
good.
Sounds like you like the word. Sounds like you like the term. I mean, obviously you don't like the thing that happens, but you like it.
Because it's a real thing. I mean, we would have just used the word in the past and been like, are you ashamed to be with that person because you don't bring them around? I've even asked friends, like they're dating this girl, and I'm like, when are we going to meet her? Like, you've been dating her for like 6 months. Are you ashamed of her?
Right.
That would be, I guess there's a reason why you stash somebody, and so we just go straight for, are you ashamed? No, I'm not ashamed of her. Okay, so then where the hell is she?
Right.
And what is the reason you stash somebody? I mean, I'm assuming there could be a bunch of reasons.
I know all of my friends are going to roast her, and that's why I haven't brought her around, or whatever. Or they're going to find out what kind of toilet humor my friends and I actually have, or whatever. But yeah,
well, that's all part of it.
Definitely, but definitely, if you, I would say that it sounds like it's somebody that you might vaguely talk about or maybe not even bring up. And there's another term called pocketing, which is the same thing. Act of keeping your partner in your pocket by not revealing to those you love. In the age of social media, it includes never posting your partner on apps like Instagram where people share their entire lives. So that's, I guess, a little heavier on the social media, but pocketing is the same exact kind of thing. So I don't know why it's two separate words, but it is.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast of discussing new dating terms. This is a 3-part podcast. We'll be back next week with part 2. Stay with us and have a great week. Find us at www.lanaanddave.com or at Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Lana and Dave. That's LanaAnddave. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.